generic medicines. We could be talking about anything. Where instead of buying the genuine, we're going to buy the knockoff. And it's everything and everything. And each one of us have done it. It's not like, oh no, I never fit it. You know, I honestly could not come before you guys and say, only fit Wabco. And I'm seriously passionate about Wabco. I really, really am. But reality is not only about Wabco, it's about the bigger picture. And we need to be real. Who here hasn't bought replacement or copy stuff? And why did we do it? Simple. One reason and one reason alone. Price. But before we got the concept of price, what were we thinking? What were we thinking before we got the concept of price? Now, let's be honest with each other here. What were we thinking? We were thinking, hey, this stuff looks pretty good, so it must be the same. It looks pretty good, so it must be the same. So let's go and have a look at that little bit of a discussion. I want to talk to you about my Damascus moment. Enter the spares advisor, stage left. So end of the year, being technical has its positives and its negatives. The negatives is I get to service all the family cars end of the year. So wife's car, daughter's car, my car. So I'm off to the old spare shop, national chain. I'm going down there and I'm speaking to the spares advisor, and he's going ringing up this lot, ringing up, and he gets to the filters, and he says, do you want the normal ones or the expensive stuff? You know, even the whole face, expensive stuff. I thought, well, that to me is an actually damn good question, because expensive to me would mean that it actually works better. And a filter, I mean, this is totally disrelated from what we're talking about, but a filter you would measure on flow rate. So you don't want oil starvation, fuel starvation, air starvation. And of course, how fine is the filter material on it? So that's measured in microns. So I'm excited. I think, well, maybe there's a new type of filter that's now available on the market. So I said to the gents, so I'm excited. I said, because I actually want the best from my car. So I said to the guy, I said, so tell me, what are these expensive ones? I'm excited now. And the guy says, yeah, these are and he goes on to mention a local brand of filter that's been made here. You might recognize it. It starts with the G. It's been around forever and a day. I'm thinking that's probably the normal ones. I'd hardly rate that as the expensive ones. So if that's the normal ones, what are your cheap ones? And I kid you not. And so he then goes on to some sort of house brand. House brand. I think, well, if they're cheaper still than the normal ones, how good can they be? I said, you can see I'm getting wobbly on this. I said, have you got any technical specs on these? And the guy says, no, he's looking a bit backpedaling now. And he goes, not really, but I've had no comebacks from them. No comebacks. Is this how we're measuring products in South Africa? No comebacks? I mean, seriously? No comebacks? And you can see I'm getting like seriously wobbly on my perch about this moment in time. So he hurriedly then adds on, no. The guys say they're really good. The guys say they're really good. I'm sorry, guys, I'm getting nervous about this stage. What do you mean the guys say they're really good? And I'm thinking about this, and I think, good for who? Maybe good for the sales guy who sells this stuff because he gets a higher commission off a house brand. I mean, let's not put lipstick on a pig here. What is a house brand? So maybe the guy who gets the better commissions on the house brand, or maybe the independent workshop guy who says he's servicing your cars. He fits on it, or whatever, your trucks. He fits on a cheap component. He puts the extra profit in his pocket. And if your truck breaks, well, you pay him again for the privilege of going to fit another one of those parts. So I'm thinking about this, and if it's not in terms of my car, and all this cheap filter does is keeps out bricks and small children, I thought, well, what's the point of that? You know, well, he gets to sell me more parts. And I got to figuring, no, it's really not how it looks. It can't be down to how it looks, because everyone looks on the outside. Me included. We always look on the outside. It's got to be about how it works. So now I realized I need to start focusing on how it works. And this is my own true story. So I went into it and I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to go into how it works, I need to specify exactly what I want. And to specify, I'm going to need some form of functional specs. It gets interesting after this, I'll show you. I need some sort of functional specs so I can actually see. So, I mean, I have additional filtration put on several of my vehicles, and they do talk about flow rate and microns. So I want functional specs, but I also don't need one-day wonders that only last today and are blocked tomorrow. So I'm going to need some form of life out of the product. So based on functional specs and product, I then went on to the next level. Because I realized without specs, none of us actually know what we're getting. We really don't. And when I went looking for specs, even of my normal filters, sorry if I upset you guys, all of the product, I really battled to find out what am I actually getting. It reminds me of the mariners of old. Mariners of old would be going on their charts and say, okay, here we are. We know how to sell from here to there. After that, not so much. So they used to notate those charts. They didn't write there, we don't know what we're seeing here. They would notate their charts as, ye be dragons beyond this point, to warn others not to go there. Maybe we need to be looking at ye be dragons beyond this point here too. So yeah, that was the subject on the filters. How do I relate this back to air brakes? Well, same connotation, same rules, same regulations, same everything. Let's go through it. It's not about how it looks or how it leaks or does not leak. Let me tell you a quick story about this. So many years ago, before I joined Watco, back before 95, I was actually working for a company and we made valves locally in South Africa, air brake valves, and I was selling them. And it's interesting, when I went to go and sell them to the various brake shops around the country, the guys would say, yeah, it looks okay. Yeah, does it leak? Does it leak? No one ever asked me, does it work? No one ever asked me about function. Only one brake shop actually threw me out. Only one in the whole country that I saw threw me out. That shop is in Nelspruit. If you've ever been to Nelspruit, you will know the person I'm speaking to. He's quite adamant about it. He actually threw out in no uncertain terms. It's about function. It's not about looks or leaks. It's about function. So let me share a little example with you today about function. I'm going to talk to you about a product or a subject called a predominance. Sorry, these slides do take a while. Click meeting is not the fastest for PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to talk to you a little bit on the subject of predominance. Most guys are not too sure about it. They've heard about it, not too sure about it. Let me explain it. I do cover this on the training course, so let me explain to you from training what I do. Right. So if we have our truck and trailer, remember, it's not how it looks, it's how it works. What we hear from the guys is that the trailer brakes first. Then obviously it goes towards the drive axle, then down to the steering axle on the truck. Well, guys, I'm going to tell you that's impossible. It's just not possible. How do I know that with confidence? Well, in the cab of the truck, right next to the driver, is his foot brake pedal. Well, right next to that foot brake pedal are the front wheels. So just by the lengths of the pipe, those front brakes are going to get air first. Then the drive axle, then via the length of the Susies or the length of the pipe, then the trailer is going to brake last. So we can say the trailer's brake first is not going to happen. It is impossible. So with that said, let me explain to you how it really works. Get in there. There we go. What's supposed to happen? This is the design of the system. So if we start off with a brake pressure of 2 bar, now 90% of braking is between 0 and 2 bar. Right, so that is obviously controlled by the driver on his foot brake pedal in the cab. So if he puts on his foot brake pedal and gets to 2 bar on the drive axle, if you put on gauges, you would find that the pressure to the front of the vehicle is reduced. Now, I'm excluding load sensing and all those things. Take it that the truck is fully laden. So the foot valve would reduce the pressure to the front. That is done entirely by the foot valve. It's built in. Then the trailer control valve on the truck increases this pressure through to the trailer. Why do we do it? Because we want to stretch the rig. We want to stretch the rig. That you can see by the circle is our fifth wheel. That is a pivot point. So we kind of want to stretch on that pivot point. That differences in pressure is in the technical specs notated as predominance. So if we went and looked at the specs on the foot valve, it'll tell us what the predominance is. It's not just I hope it's there. It's there. The trailer control has a predominance. It needs to stretch the rig on the trailer so the trailer does not push. Now, the crazy thing is, to be honest, I've tested a bit of this copy stuff. I have not found any of it with any form of predominance in it. I just haven't. So let's go and get honest. What happens if we do braking between a truck and a trailer without predominance? Get in there. We lose compatibility. And I look at people there saying, "Oh, what's compatibility?" Good question. Let's get down to it. Let's drill down to the facts of this. What is it? Well, basically, it means the trailer pushes the truck, because we already said that the trailer brakes last. So without predominance, the trailer pushes the truck onto what? Onto our fifth wheel. Our fifth wheel is our pivot point. What's going to happen from that? We all know what's going to happen from that. Jackknives. That's why, is it a coincidence that after the rains in Joburg, particularly Joburg, I'm sure Durban and other big cities too, trucks are driving along, traffic stopped in the highway, driver jumps on the brakes, and there's another jackknife. Jackknife here, jackknife there. You hear on the radio traffic reports all the time. Is that coincidence, or is it no compatibility? Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is the massive cost of not having original valves with predominance built into it. So the guys buy the cheaper valve. Hey, looks so good. It's not how it looks. It's how it works. So now you can see it. So there's the massive cost. You might say, "Yo, my drivers haven't jackknifed their trucks." Hopefully, never. I'm not going to say the word yet, but I'm saying hopefully it never happens, because that is a massive cost and a lot of ramifications. So is that the worst case scenario? Well, it is worst case scenario, but there's this other one, the sneaky one, the hidden costs. What happens now? Let's talk about it. The trailer brakes last. So basically, the trailer pushes onto the truck, which means the truck brakes have to work that much harder, that much hotter. They are going to wear that much faster. There's no free lunch, ladies and gentlemen. It just can't be. There's no free lunch. Now, if a driver has a trailer brake valve in the truck, he can stretch the trailer. If he really knows his business, he can use a handbrake in the truck to brake the trailer only. But again, no free lunch. We'll then get excessive braking on the trailer, which is heat and wear, not only of the brakes, but of the tires as well. Now, obviously, you run transport, you know what your costs are: salaries, fuel, tires. So these are all hidden costs. Yeah, but I'm buying cheap valves. Yeah, but where are the hidden costs? So does WABCO have specs? I'm saying it has WABCO specs. These valves have predominance. But am I speaking out of my hat? Guys, anything's possible. In this day and age, trust nothing. So let's go and see. I'll go onto the WABCO website, the local South African website, wabco.co.za. There on the top menus is our customer center. Anyone's got access to that. You click on a customer center, you go and choose a product by part number or by description, and you get the full specs. What are those specs including? Settings. So if we look at that 4-circuit protection valve in front of you, that will help. The specs on that will show you the static opening and closing pressures, the dynamic opening and closing pressures. These are quite different things. They're very specific. It'll also tell that valve also includes pressure limiting. It'll hold that feature on it as well if it's included on that part number. These are specs you can trust. They're there. So if the specs are there, the product is going to work to those specs. So no specs. What else are we going to get? Well, valves that have got predominance are going to have it. So we'll see that on the foot valve. It'll show you what the predominance is per part number. Trailer control per part number. What the adjustable range is. What the graphs of the valve is. Relay emergency valves have the same. It's all there. So that's the functionality of it working. So what about the durability? For me to say that WABCO lasts forever or a long time is just hearsay. Can I prove it? Well, the standard warranty is 2 years. Nice. The experience I have is exceptional long life out of the product, 7, 8, 10 years plus. It really does last an awful long time. But is it just the lucky cases I found? Can you test it? I think that is really where it's going to get down to today, where we need to test it for ourselves, where I need to specify, where you need to specify, can you measure for yourself? And yes, you can. It's right there in plain open sight. If you go to the tags on any of the WABCO valves, you look on the tag and you just zone in on the top digits. The screen's not very big, but you'll see that's week 22. This goes 2296. So that's week 22 of 1996. And it's there for all to see. So every time you take a WABCO valve off, have a look. How old is it? I mean, your tires, you measure your tires, how often you recap them. You're taking valves off. When did you last fit that valve? If it doesn't have a date on it, do you honestly know what kind of life you've had out of it? Here it is. Anyone can measure it. You know, to be honest, when I look at WABCO, I really have to say WABCO really is the fit and forget reliability. It really is fit and forget reliability. It lasts and lasts and lasts. And it's not to be arrogant, not at all. It's confidence. You know, when I was doing the OE supply into the trailer builders here in the Cape, if the guys had a problem, I'd look for something other than the product, because it really is fit and forget reliability. It is solid, rock solid product. You can prove for yourself. But as we all know, there's no free lunch. There's no free lunch in life, ladies and gentlemen. We all know that. So it is a tough year. What are we going to do when it comes to saying, hey, I've got a tight budget. My budget's been slashed, no option. I've got to cut costs. What am I going to do? Or maybe you've got an aging fleet. You might say, okay, we're not going to keep this vehicle. I'm so pleased to hear the WABCO is going to last 7, 8, 10 years. I'm excited about that, but I'm not keeping this truck or trailer for another 7. I'm going to keep it for another couple of years, 3 years. And I'm under huge pressure. Well, WABCO recognized that. They recognized that. And they brought out a second-tier product specifically for this. Now, this is not a product that we bought out. This is a WABCO company we've created. So it's designed purely to fill this aftermarket niche of a second-tier product to satisfy the aftermarket needs. The product is called Profia. So does it meet the acid test of specs and life? Let's go see. Go along to the Profia website, www.profia-auto.com. Cross the menu option, products, go down, up comes a product. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't, if I can find it, you can find it. We're going to find the full line of specs, everything from settings to predominance. It's all there. So there's no surprises, no secrets. It's a WABCO company. You would expect that. So, okay, so we have the specs. Do we have the life? Well, it comes with a 1-year warranty. There we go, slides up. It does come with a 1-year warranty. Nice. We're presuming a long life. Nice. Can you measure for yourself? Yes, you can. You can see the WABCO heritage of the product. Just look at the tag. What do we see? Same thing. Week and year. Measure for yourself. It's not about how it looks. It's not even about what I say. It's the facts are there in front of you. Have a look for yourself. Week and year. That's how you can tell how long did my Profia last for. So now we can offer you full functionality at a lower cost. So now we're kind of getting the best of both worlds. So now, what is that life expectancy? Well, we noticed the warranty go down to 1 year. Is it going to be the same as a WABCO? There's no free lunch. There's no free lunch. If you want a lower price, something has to go. But we have the experience in building air brake components. We know what's not going to last is not going to last as long. So we can build it into it. Full transparency, no surprises. Pick up any of the Profia brochures or catalogs. What do you find in it? Hold on. This. They tell you right up front what is the expected performance and life of the product. How transparent is that? I have not seen that anywhere else. I really haven't. We expect it's a second-tier product. It's for the aftermarket. We expect it's not going to last as long. In fact, that's why people are buying the copy stuff. because they didn't want it to last. They didn't mind if it didn't last as long. They just wanted the cheaper price. Well, here you can actually see it's still above the average of what we're seeing in the aftermarket. So to sum it up, if we had to look at the Wabco and Profia products, they both last. They both work. We've got working and lasting product, and obviously we've got the OE and aftermarket pricing. So we've got both sides of the market covered. So if you want to keep with the OE because you want long distance, you can't compromise, we've got that. If you're looking for the aftermarket, it's there. Copy stuff, well, you got aftermarket pricing, and after that, those murky waters are back. Ye be dragons beyond this point. So, ladies and gentlemen, is there a comparison? Well, I don't think I even need to ask that, to answer that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. The choice is yours. Thank you. Patrick, over to you, sir. Oh, do you have any questions? No. Putting on the glasses.
Max, thank you very much. It was a lovely. I liked the beginning when you said who hasn't bought a cheaper part. Yeah, generic medicines. You referred to that. Very interesting because most people are asking for generic apart from the original. I'm not going to ask you to answer this question now, but I'm going to pose the question. By the introduction of Profia, are you not perhaps propagating the or advancing the cause for aftermarket parts away from the original parts? I hear your logic behind it, but some might say, well, you've accepted that there's that part of the market. So you, instead of avoiding it or going against it, you've actually climbed into that part of the market. Nick, I'm going to pose that question. But time-wise, for those listeners, all these questions will be taken down and they will be answered via email if we don't have a time, or otherwise at the end of all the presentations. But Vic, just bear that question in mind. And now we're going to move on to...
With pleasure. I will gladly answer that later on.
Thank you, Vic. A lovely presentation. It touched the psychology of buying and related to the current economic times. Very tempting to go the cheaper route.
It is.
But thank you very much on that, Vic.
Thanks.
Now, we're going to now move on to Max Gurini from BPW Axles, who's Business Development Manager. Max, can you put on your... There, the man is there. And Max is going to talk about the same subject and their particular views on it. So, Max, without any informal introduction, over to you. Max, you've got your sound off. Good old technology, eh? We used to have manual typewriter. Now, I'm shaking my head, Max. Sound. Can you put it on?
I don't know, it's not working.
Max, it was working before. Okay, I'll tell you what we can do. Let us move on while Kali will help Max sort out his sound. Let us move on. J.A., if you don't mind, if we can move on to you at the moment. And Max, Kali, and you will have a look at getting the sound done. So, J.A., yeah. J.A., are you okay on that one? Max, I'm gonna if you just put your video up, and Kali will try to sort you out. J.A. Pillay is ZF Services South Africa Business Development Manager. And so over to you, J.A., aftermarket, cheap versus original.
Thank you, Patrick. Hello, everyone. So before I start talking about spare parts, I thought I'd give you a quick overview of ZF as a company. And let's see how the slides work. Okay. As you can see, ZF is very active in the mobility sector. So it provides solutions to most vehicle applications. It is also very active in the future of mobility with constant innovation. As a group, ZF operates in 3 different segments, and the revenue is generated from these segments, with 80% of the revenue coming from the light commercial vehicles and passenger cars. Now, if you note on the right-hand side, for 2019, ZF Group allocated 2.5 billion euro for research and development. That's important. We'll come back to that. Okay, and then in the next slide, I thought I'd just show you what ZF supplies for things like cars. Right? If you have a look at these product ranges, you'll see things like gearboxes, shocks, axles, suspension systems. And we do the same for trucks. And I'm sure all of you are aware of our brands in these areas, in these segments. For buses as well. And on the off-highway equipment, these are some of the OEMs that we support. And you see we predominantly on the axles, transmissions, suspensions, that sort of thing. All right. ZF has some really strong brands in its portfolio. And you can see Lemforder suspension parts, sucks, shocks and clutches, TRW brakes, brake systems, and hello to our Webco colleagues. And of course, the ZF brand. Right. Now, why is this important? It's important because when OEMs are building their cars and trucks and whatever they're building, these vehicles go into those vehicles, or these parts go into those. The parts topic that we're all here to speak about. Right. So when we look at a part, and Vic, I think when during his talk, he made some very pertinent points there as well. So when we look at a part that we go and buy, what do we see? We just see the part. We don't know what goes into it. We don't know how it was developed. And I just want to show you a little bit of what goes into a part when it's manufactured on the OEM side, so as original parts. So if we compare spare parts to an iceberg, when we go to buy the part, all we see is that bit that shows above the waterline. We don't understand that there's a whole lot that's hidden under the waterline that we're not aware of. And that is things like the investment in the part to develop it. So original parts manufacturers, they spend a lot of money and they use a lot of time for research, development, testing of a product to make sure it's reliable. Right. What we also don't realize is that a part is not designed in isolation. It's not designed as a single part. It's designed as part of a mini system or a system. And that in turn has to fit into a bigger system. And then, of course, original part manufacturers subject their parts and systems to rigorous testing to ensure that the part and its system interfaces with the rest of the vehicle and their systems. Now, what do I mean by that? It sounds like a lot of big words. It is a lot of big words. So if we look at that gear in the middle of the slide, the manufacturer doesn't toss into a box and then say, you know what, that's a gearbox. You can use it now. Obviously, consideration has to be given to its matching partner, how it interacts with that. And in this case, it's a gear, so it's in a gearbox. How would it interface with the rest of the gears in that gearbox? And what we are looking for is reliability and efficiency. So this forms part of a little subsystem, right? So the gears together forms part of a subsystem. And that in turn needs to fit into a larger subsystem, be it a bus, a truck, a car. So these systems need to work seamlessly together so that the OEM has a quality, reliable product that they can get onto the market. So all these considerations have to be made when designing these products, right? And then, of course, when you're looking at the rest of what goes into development of the parts, the manufacturer has to consider things like the material quality. So looking at that gear again, the engineer that develops this gear doesn't just go and choose a piece of steel and say, okay, we've got steel, let's make the gear. There's a lot of research that goes into it. There's specific types of steel that has to be chosen. I don't know all the nitty-gritties, but all this has to be taken into consideration to develop a quality part. And then you get various other processes, like, for example, the hardening process. And then more and more, how quietly do these parts work together? Because no one wants a noisy vehicle, right? So all that is considered by the manufacturer, the original equipment manufacturer, when producing a part. And then obviously, all of you are aware of supersessions. That's part of the continuous improvement projects that all these OEMs have. So during the development of a part, when they have these parts out in the market, and then the feedback from the market generates improvement to specific parts. So it doesn't end when that manufacturer makes the part. It continues through the lifespan of the vehicle and the spare part. And then also we must realize that every step of the way for this development process, there's teams of engineers that are sitting there developing the various stages. So the costs are pretty high, and we have to acknowledge that. Now let's move on to the pros and cons of the original part. And I've taken this from the internet, from Edmunds.com, aftermarket versus manufacturer. And I would like to start off with the cons for the original part and look at the expensive, the point that says more expensive. And looking at the previous slide, we can see why it's more expensive. There's a lot of development costs. There's a lot that needs to be built into this product to make it reliable for consumption, right? And then also they point out that the parts are restricted in that they can only be sourced at a dealership. Okay, we have to accept that. Now, let's move on to the pros. These parts, the OEM parts, are originally fitted to your vehicle when you buy the vehicle. So it's the same parts that come assembled from the assembly line. These parts are available in the aftermarket. So it's good quality parts. The next point says quality is constant. And what I mean by that is, if you were to go into a dealership here in Johannesburg, say Durban, Cape Town, you would get the same part, the exact same quality part would be available to you. So there's no differentiation. And then obviously these parts carry a warranty, right? So we can be assured of the quality. Now I want to bring your attention to the left, our little logos to the left there, before I move on to the next slide. And we'll discuss this a little later. Now the pros and cons for the non-original. And let's start with the pros first. Yes, it says on the same Edmunds website, it says it's less expensive. Yes, we know why it's less expensive. There's no development costs. And how do these manufacturers make these parts if there's no development costs then? So I know a lot of people don't like to hear the term copy parts, but the fact is that these parts are copied. So the manufacturer of these parts do not have a research and development team that would research how this part would fit into a whole system it's not interacting with the whole vehicle. It's manufacturing just a spare part. So in terms of a part like this gear, a copy would be made. However, I don't think much consideration would be given to, or maybe not great consideration would be given to the tolerances. So the tolerances may not be accurate. All right. And then I said previously that perhaps the non-genuine part doesn't have the same consideration to the rest of the system, right? And then if we move on, it says there's more variety. So these parts, there's hundreds of manufacturers of these aftermarket parts. And there's better availability as well. So you don't have to buy it at the dealership, you can buy it anyway. The problem is when you look at the cons, the quality varies greatly. So you get what you pay for. And the normal consumer, how would he know what he's getting when he's going to buy a spare part? If he looks at the price of the part, and Vic said in his presentation, there's no free lunch. So what are they giving up to give you that part so cheap? And then obviously there's an overwhelming selection. So you get bombarded by the various spare parts. And once again, the spare parts guy is trying to sell his house brand. And then the last point here, there may not be a warranty on the part. Now I want to bring your attention back to the logo. Remember I showed you the logo on the previous slide? And have a look at this logo. This is the power of association. Lots of the non-genuine, non-original parts manufacturers try and make their logos, their packaging, their parts as close to the original parts as possible so that they can piggyback sales of the original part. And the problem is, if we move on to the next slide, they manufacture the packaging so well that in some cases, the end user doesn't realize that this is not a genuine part until it fails. And then when it fails, obviously, there's no repercussions because who does he go back to? So that's a big problem. All right, and then my presentation is reasonably short. So my last slide, I want you to consider this. Remember that original parts are manufactured while considering the entire vehicle system. Installing a non-genuine part in a vehicle system places all the other parts in that system at risk. For example, that gearbox or the gear that I showed you. Right, and a failure of the non-genuine parts can potentially lead to failures of more parts in that subsystem, resulting in an expensive repair. And the question is the financial risk worth it? Is the financial risk of extensive failure, the downtime, and the loss of income associated with using a cheaper variant really acceptable to you, the fleet owner? Thank you. That is my presentation.
Patrick?
Right, there we go. What happened to the old manual typewriter and fax machine and pigeons and all that, the new technology? Jaya, that was a wonderful presentation. I love the power of association because over the years we've seen so often, we've seen logos that have been, oh, they're so close, even in the clothing market, you know. But Jaya, I'd like you to have a look at Ian Du Toit's comment there. OEs don't manufacture their own parts. Jay, you can switch your video on so we can see you. OEs don't manufacture their own parts. Some aftermarket parts meet or even exceed OE specifications. The aftermarket manufacturer makes for both in some instances. Can you comment on that?
Should I comment now, Patrick?
I think if you could comment now, quickly, yeah.
Yes, sure. OEs don't manufacture all their parts. To a certain extent, they do have suppliers that they have, which manufacture those parts for them. However, there are strict criteria that the manufacturer has to follow in order to meet the what would you say, the requirements of the manufacturer. So in any of the OEMs, I'm sure they have strict criteria because the end product has to be a quality product that goes into the market, or else how do you keep the customer coming back? So I agree with that comment that not everyone manufactures their own part, but I'm saying there are strict criteria that has to be followed, and all these suppliers have to follow those criteria.
And the research
I don't know
and
if that answers your question.
Yeah, and the research and development and all that sort of stuff, that is taken into account. And so those people have to follow your specs, your quality standards, your oversight, and your inspections.
Exactly.
Okay, that answers that one. Thank you, Max. If you come in now, we've got another comment at the bottom, but yes, Max, we can hear you loud and clear. Max is from BPW Axles. We had a bit of a problem with the speaker before, but no problem now. You're loud and clear. Over to you, Max.
Okay, thank you. Kylie.
Okay, she'll put it on now. Where's sorry? What, the BPW presentation? Okay, now we're gonna oh, you know, we had a little power outage as well. Good old Eskom. Max, it's just been loaded again.
Okay.
There's a lot to be said for the new era. Is this the new norm? Is this the new norm they're talking?
Yeah.
I love it when it works. But we're getting a little bit of hiccups. So I've been on quite a few webinars over time, and I can assure you this one's running quite smoothly compared to some of them there. Yanni, are you perhaps in there? If you can switch on your video. Max, we might come back to you again. Sorry.
Okay.
Yanni, are you there?
No problem.
Let's see if Yanni comes in. And these things were all there before, working perfectly, eh? By the way, to everyone's in here, we don't just go on the live at a chance. It's all tested. The presentations are working, everything, and then sometimes you get a hiccup during the day. A few potholes along the road where you don't expect them. So we're used to that in South Africa. Okay, Yanni, I don't know if you can hear me. If you can switch your video on, Yanni, that'll be cool. Okay, I see Yanni's video is not in. Okay, Max, we're going to hang in with you. And
can you hear me?
Just wait for the... Yeah, we can hear you. We just need your presentation on. It's coming through now. Okay. Max, talk to us. Tell us about what you're going to do when you grow
thank you. Well, thank you very much. Actually, it's been a very interesting webinar up to now, and I'm almost ready to pack it in because Vic has touched on many things that I'm going to be touching on, and so has Yaya, and I'm pretty sure that Yanni after me. Also, to refer back to Ian's comment, many of the manufacturers, we totally agree with that. Actually, BPW from that perspective is quite unique because many of what BPW manufactures is actually manufactured by BPW or BPW owned companies. And then, of course, what is not then manufactured by BPW, an example could be an airbag, and we rely then on external partners like Contitech or Firestone. But where we then branded the product BPW or BPW airbag, BPW has certainly had a lot of the input and the technical input into the product itself. So yeah, we are a bit different. So as a manufacturer, our if I can call it, our integration is actually quite strong from that perspective.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people have pointed. I think it was a very good point that Ian touched on. You know that that it is manufactured for OEM. A very good question.
Yeah.
But the point is that let's you know, we used to use the word Max pirate part. Is that still used?
Well, I actually coincidentally make use of that word today. So, and we tend to refer to alternative parts as, you know, if I can call it a good quality. I don't want to call it generic because we were making the reference to medicine early on, and that's very, very chemistry driven. So you can really replicate that almost 100%, well, if not 100%. But we use the term alternative to maybe denote a good quality offering for the second life of the vehicle. You know, still a branded product, a boxed product, and we use then a pirate part as a term to denote perhaps the real copycat. You know, the cheap and nasty, with really absolutely no R&D has gone into it. Perhaps the best example is that brake drum that you showed at the beginning of your presentation, and that is exactly the difference. You know.
Yeah. We've, you know, the old days of pirate parts was very, you know, there was a reason for calling it pirate. Pirates tend to steal from people. They go out onto the open ocean in their boats with a skull on their flags, and they get the guides, and they tend to steal it and then go, and it's all theirs. And there's a big difference. I think Joe showed the what do they call it? The power of association, the false logos. Yeah. We've seen it with Nike on clothing and all this type of thing. But the point is that...
But is that not stealing? Is that not stealing? Is the power of association not really a fancier term to really say theft? You know, yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think, you know, the R&D... okay, your presentation, come on, just to finish.
Good.
The R&D that has gone into... I've been to many overseas plants. So R&D that goes in, and the money that goes into research and development is mind-boggling. And then someone comes along and just copies that, forges a logo, and says this is original. And many operators don't actually know what they're buying. The operator also needs to get wise, and I hope the seminar does that for them. Max, I'm going to keep quiet, Jay. Your presentation is up. Go for it.
Thank you. Okay, so I also start like Yaya, a little bit of the organization. And I would just like to introduce then the BPW Group corporate philosophy. Simply put, we place our products and expertise in the service of our customers in the transport and logistics industry. There are no compromises. We listen to what they want and very often provide bespoke solutions that ultimately meet their need. We really believe in a partnership approach, and we call this thinking transport. A timeline of our organization. The company was founded in 1898. It's still it's a privately owned company, still owned by the founding family, the Kotz family. In 1962, we were the first foreign subsidiary purchased of the group. Our name changed in 1990, so it's not appearing here, to BPW Axles. A very important milestone then is 2013, where the reorientation of the group occurred, looking at then offering itself as a mobility partner to the transporter and as a systems partner then to the vehicle builder. And then 2016, then in line then with thinking transport, the purchase then of PE Automotive, one of Europe's leading aftermarket suppliers. Our sales strategy, pretty much illustrated in our corporate philosophy, but here schematically represented. We, to all intents and purposes, market directly at the vehicle operator, offer pre-service, during service, post-service. We understand what the customer wants. and then drive this demand of the customer through the vehicle manufacturer or distributor, and we then supply this indirectly again then through the vehicle manufacturer or the distributor. Okay, now I'm stuck because I'm not sure. Okay, I see now. Pardon me. It's our focus then in the market is the vehicle operator, the vehicle manufacturer, agricultural vehicles and industry, and then trucks and buses. So our customer support. Just one moment. We really believe renowned pre- and post-sale support and market-leading warranties. So pre-sale support, application engineering, understanding what the customer needs and offering them bespoke solutions for that specific application. Market-leading warranties, our Eco Plus warranty, 3+2 year warranty on-road, 2 years off-road. We offer off-site and emergency service during the warranty period, customer training courses, and extensive spare parts availability throughout the BPW network. Our focus then on the aftermarket. The BPW aftermarket is the personal and reliable partner for commercial vehicle workshops throughout Southern and in fact all of Africa. It can really be divided into an own distributed network through JMR Transport Solutions, and then we have approximately 100 other branches of independent parts distributors, resellers, and workshops that are offering then BPW genuine parts and then PE branded spare parts. We look then at BPW genuine parts, and effectively no compromises. We set then the benchmark worldwide for no compromise top quality products, meeting the highest demands for quality and reliability. The products are sourced directly from BPW, okay? And as I mentioned earlier on, approximately 80% of all parts are manufactured then by BPW or BPW group-owned companies. They offer the same levels of quality and performance that the OE parts the OE parts do, because we don't have a second brand. What the transporter, the customer gets, is the same part that we use in production, in BPW production lines worldwide, is what he gets. It's exactly the same part. Okay, these parts are extensively tested in our owned BPW testing facility in Bushamula, very, very close to our headquarters in Veal. Okay, so for over 120 years, in fact, we can relate then to the previous presentations, is that ultimately for over 120 years, I always like to say for over 120 years, we're continuously researching and developing the product. What does this then bring as an advantage to transporters? Well, Yaya also mentioned it, safety, perfectly synchronized individual components that are 100% compatible and match precisely, ensuring then maximum performance. What does this give you then? Long life expectancy and shorter repair times. An example that we can bring here is the mating of BPW brake linings with the original BPW drums. It's generally known in the aftermarket that you generally get 3 relines before you have to replace the drum. Shorter repair times, why? Eco principles, innovation. The eco principle or the Formula 1 principle, where it's very, very easy to repair BPW axles. Product liability and a smooth claims handling processes where faults are then covered by the warranty, ultimately leading then to long-term cost effectiveness and low cost of ownership. Goodness. Good. A focus then on PE branded spare parts. So at BPW, we'll always we recognize that commercial vehicles have to have a productive second life, and we'll always advocate the use of original parts, even if the vehicles are out of warranty. But we're cognizant as well that fleet operators match repair costs to the vehicle's age and value. or have vehicles that are operating in particularly challenging conditions where product failure occurs more often because of the conditions themselves. So through this then, we can offer then our second brand, the PE branded spare part, which we really believe is quality, and we are so confident in the quality that ultimately we offer then PE parts with a 2-year warranty on the truck and a 1-year warranty on the trailer, thus making then the transporter's transition from OE to PE a trusted one. A look then at the aftermarket. What are we competing, or what are our concerns? I think our concerns are very much what WAPCO may have, what ZF may have, what Knorr may have, what all OE manufacturers have. Very, very aggressive competition. The adage holds that there are 3 kinds of service, effectively: good, cheap, and fast. But generally speaking, a customer can really only pick 2: good and cheap, but that ultimately won't be fast. Apologies, don't know what is happening here. Good and cheap, but that won't be fast. Fast and good won't be cheap. And then cheap and fast, which ultimately won't be good. A colleague of mine in KZN said that he can get all 3, cheap, and all. But up here, we're not able to do that. What is that? So just to build on what Yaya was saying about the research and development, continual improvement. So what are we up against? A benchmarking exercise shows us that on some particularly fast-moving consumable repair parts, the price differentials of BPW original, for example, versus the PE, we range anything from 20% to around 90%. What then are the price variances between BPW and Pirates? We can range anything from approximately 70% to almost 300%. And then we look then at the price variances between PE branded spare parts versus Pirate. We range anything from about 30% to in excess of 100%. So may I just interrupt? If someone, I cannot get this, maybe this is the thing. I cannot get it into presentation mode. Just doing its own.
Got your, we're looking at your slides, Max?
Yes, I understand that, but it's kind of jumping by itself, and it's not. Okay. Yeah, okay. But it's fine. So I'm not sure if you're supposed to. No, that's okay. Yeah, apologies for this. It was supposed to be a little bit more interactive. So, but anyway, so what are our challenges? The challenges are really what we call the 3 C's, and then what are the implications and impacts thereof? So what are the 3 C's? Well, firstly, we know that we're competing against cheap, okay? And then the question then would be then, why are they so cheap? Okay, and I think Patrick's photo of the brake drum kind of illustrated that. It's the 3rd C, it's crap, perhaps, but could it also be that we're cheating? Are we not paying the right duties? Are we not paying the right taxes? Or are, when we're calling in, the customer's asking for a BPW original or a WAPCO original, and then actually he's then being fed an alternative or Pirate part. What are the implications and impacts? Well, firstly, today's day and age, ethical and moral. What about the safety, the service life? Of course, increased downtimes, the impact on the warranties we don't honor. I'm pretty sure that WAPCO won't honor, and ultimately then leading to the decreased bottom line. Okay, let's see if this is... Okay, I need this. If this is a movie, how do I get it to play? Help, Kylie.
Kylie. Let's see. It looks like Mike Tyson is about to come on. I see he's coming on again this weekend, eh?
He is indeed.
I'm getting a nodded shake there, Max. It's not going to play.
It's not going to play. Okay.
No.
So
describe what's going on in the ring.
Okay. So very simply put, actually, who knew that Mike Tyson was one of the greatest strategists? And apologies to the BPW team because they've seen this video a couple of times, but we'll keep watching it. So, but Mike Tyson, to all intents and purposes, is actually one of the world's greatest strategists because he said that everybody has a plan or a strategy, effectively until you're punched in the face. Now, this particular bout was against Peter McNeely, and Peter McNeely was the great Irish hope, and McNeely's plan was that he was going to go into the ring and slug it out with Iron Mike in his heyday. Needless to say that within the 90 seconds, the bout was over. So that didn't really work out for McNeely. So what have we been doing then at BPW? Well, we are trying to really box clever. And what do we mean then by boxing clever? Well, the focus then is really intensely on BPW's mobility strategy and ultimately creating value. So what do we offer? We offer then outstanding quality, BPW genuine and PE branded spare parts, outstanding service, outstanding warranties. And then what is boxing clever? We all taught that we need to think out of the box. So we started thinking out of the box, but we also then started thinking inside of the box and what we need to put inside the box. So perhaps the best way to show it is in the top left-hand corner is a box of return springs, and those are brake return springs. So to all intents and purposes, our maintenance manual states that on reline and on brake shoe replacement, all the return springs and C-clips have to be replaced. So what is happening? To save a few pennies, the transporter perhaps didn't know or wasn't being informed or wasn't being educated, and all he would be doing is perhaps replacing the C-clips or replacing one return spring. What we did was we then created then the kits, physically the kits, and made a conscious decision to sell only the kit. There was from us a lot of fear that we would lose a lot of sales. That's not what the aftermarket wants. That's not what customers want. But sometimes, whilst we have to listen to the customer and understand his needs, we also are very, very much responsible to educate the customer and say there are certain safety critical components or there are certain steps that one has to take that you cannot actually avoid. And the brake return spring was one because it's a safety critical item, and if the return springs are not being replaced, ultimately what can happen? You get worsened braking, possibly leading then to ultimately catastrophic brake failures with all then the intended consequences. Whilst we kitted, this did result in an initial higher price, but we then revised the pricing of our kits to really then offer outstanding value to the transporter, thereby reinforcing then our value proposition of low cost of ownership. What have the results been? Well, for the last number of years in our aftermarket or spare part sales or aftermarket sales, we really have been increasing sales in leaps and bounds, proving ultimately that customers are tired of cheap and or cheat and or crap. So therefore, in conclusion, then, what is Thinking Transport about? Well, it's really about the full assortment for truck and trailer. We can offer then original spare parts of the BPW group, aftermarket spare parts for commercial vehicle through our sister company PE, for the maintenance, ultimately for the repair, and for all stages then of the vehicle life cycle. And that's it. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I'm not sure if we can answer now or later. Patrick, your audio. No audio, Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, we have tried so hard to get, and Yanni tried so hard to get that presentation on, but it hasn't been working. It doesn't look like it's... Yanni, you there?
He is there.
Oh my goodness, wonderful. That is fantastic. Look, thank you very much, Max. There's a long question here, or comment and question from Duncan Prince. I think we'll come to it at the end, and also from Henny van der Merwe, ZF, one directed at you. Max, what about the right to repair, etc.? But I think let us give Yanni the floor now. Yanni, it's so nice to have you on there. Sorry about all the problems on the side, the new normal. I would like to just say, so I'll come back to Max's presentation as well. Yanni, I don't want to interrupt you anymore. Over to you, my friend.
No, thank you very much, Patrick. I actually had to make a plan with my cell phone. So you're looking for my cell phone camera, and I'm working on my laptop because our company, IT security is so high, I had problems getting into the laptop. Okay, let's continue. So when I was asked about this webinar to attend or to present, I thought a bit about it, and I didn't want to go and concentrate on the complete brake system. We've got a lot of electronic and conventional brake system parts that make up the control of your truck to have perfect braking. So my thought was I want to touch 3 points, and I wanted to start from compressors, a strong start. That's where your energy generation starts. That compressor delivering clean air for your system, ensuring long-term lifespan of the rest of the system. Then I want to go over to that air, to the proven powerful and efficient air dryer cartridges in our air dryers and our electronic air control systems, and just talk a little about and compare it to alternatives. And then I will end a bit with top performance of our air disc brake pads and disc, and just also show you some information in regards to that. So let's continue. Strong start for your brake system. You need to be sure you have a proper compressor. Now, from Bremse over the last 20 years, of course, we've been manufacturing compressors for many longer than 20 years. Has worked a lot in developing and reducing the oil carryover and increasing reduced wear, and achieving that compressor is durable, reliable, and sustainable. Due to the compressor creating oil vapor, developing all this to reduce the oil vapor carryover, to protect your compressor air system, Knorr has done a lot of developments such as optimizing production processes, creating energy-saving systems, and improved cooling technologies. This also was developments in clutch compressors. All of this will reduce the stresses on your tire brake system by reduced carryover of oil and wear in your compressor. Just to the next slide. Therefore, Bremse also, with these developments over the years, did some comparison tests. And if you look at alternative compressor oil carryover, for example, this test is a 270,000 kilometer test on average speeds of 70 kilometers and at 3,800 hours. And looking at the oil gram an hour carryover, you can see the Knorr Bremse OE compressors, which basically 9 million are fitted in the market today, is basically 20% of other alternative parts. Looking at alternative compressor, of course, with compressors of the third suppliers, rules significantly that your lifespan will release, more oil carryover will take place. And this will increase, of course, your cost over the long term, where the Knorr compressors basically performs optimally and reducing those problems. Now, when you have the compressor that's functioning properly, the next step, and I think just to mention also the compressor and the air dryer and the cartridge, And your pads and discs is basically the most hard-working parts in your system. And if you don't take care of your system after your air dryer, that will become the most expensive part to replace. So Knorr-Bremse, as a OE manufacturer of brake systems and developer of it, basically develop their own air dry cartridges, and other alternatives are normally not brake system developers. Therefore, for example, if you just look at 100,000 kilometers of truck travel, and you're assuming that every hour there's 1 gram of oil transferred, you can look up to 2 liters of oil going into your system. If you don't have a proper filtering system, that oil will go into the rest of your systems. We have many times that we get people coming to us to say, I have a claim, and if you take a look at the equipment, of course, it's full of oil. And that happens sometimes when people buy a truck and they never replace the cartridge. So it's important the cartridges are replaced. Those are designed to increase the lifetime of your brake system. If you look at what's available from Knorr-Bremse, we've got the standard air dry cartridge, which is more aimed at a market with conventional brake systems. And then also the oil separating cartridge was developed to work with mechatronic brake systems, your electronic brake systems, and to make sure that the systems receive the optimum air. With the air dry cartridge, OEC, oil separating cartridge, it can service intervals is up to 36 months, where the standard cartridge is 12 months. Of course, in harsh conditions, we would recommend, of course, a shorter replacement time. And of course, 30 million units of those cartridges we've manufactured in our Knorr-Bremse plant and distributed to the market. Then again, we did a comparison against alternative air dry cartridges available in the market. And if you look to the left hand, this is basically our OSC oil separating cartridge available from Knorr-Bremse. And this cartridge also has an oil filter and taking out oil particles and dust and so on. So in the Knorr-Bremse system, the oil filter is basically designed to be in the bottom of the cartridge and in the bottom of the air dryer or air processing unit, where the oil gets trapped before it even travels up to the desiccant material, basically also filters the water and dust out of it. Therefore, the oil gets trapped in the bottom, and if it purges or exhausts the system, a lot of that oil and particles will be exhausted. Comparing to alternative competitors, they first let the air and oil vapor go into the desiccant, which is more for the water and particles. Then they have an oil filter, and however, the oil then will penetrate the desiccant material and, of course, reduce the life and effectivity of that filter. And even further, another competitor in the market, they also put the filter of the oil separation on top of the desiccant material, and obviously, with time, that oil will also siphon through to the system. On the right-hand side, the comparative test again, you can see the oil and filtering performance and drying performance of Knorr-Bremse part in a comparison to other competitors in the OEC is basically much higher. Then, of course, Knorr-Bremse, air disc brakes, market leader since 1995, official production of air disc brake calipers. I think last I heard about 35 million units in the market sold to the OE manufacturers. Besides that, I don't want to concentrate on caliper because it would be, if somebody that replaces a caliper with an alternative is taking a big chance, because that's the last line of mechanical defense you have. So looking at the pads we use, or the approved test or the approved Knorr-Bremse pads used in our air disc brakes, we as Knorr-Bremse do not just test to the regulation, the ECR 90 regulation. You look at this column, we actually go above and beyond of the requirement and further testing, ensuring that that pad as the best matching and friction matching and longest lasting material and design for the braking systems. We also then again went to comparative testing in the market. We took alternative pads, Knorr-Bremse standard of a Protex brake pad, authorized brake pad for our disc brakes, air disc brakes. We do one of the tests, a vibration test. The mark that we use is that the Knorr-Bremse approved pad must pass a 1.29 million load changes, vibration changes test. And comparing to other pads, let's say, I'm not going to use names. The pad J represents no specific manufacturer. We did a 40,000 cycle test, and half of the brake pad dropped off. Basically, as you can see, rendering it's unusable. And of course, with all these other failures, what will happen? You will save a couple of $100 on a brake set pad, and then of course that pad can create a lot of damage to the caliper, which then is a lot of money that you need to replace. Then we look at pad I. Of the 420,000 cycle chainers, the pad holder spring. The pad holder spring, people think, it's just keeping it there. Knorr-Bremse has a patented design with a tension and spot weld that holder in a perfect tension for it to allow for the pad to slide and reduce, delay and minimum friction when released. Going to pad M as an example, 340,000 changes, the outer pad spring broke. And then pad R of the 75,000 load changes, the pad holder spring broke. So then also this is basically the main bracket that keeps both pads inside a caliper. And of course it can come out. I've seen photos where pads that came out of caliper went through car windscreens. Another test that we do is a wear test comparison. It's basically on a test bench where accepted levels for Knorr-approved brake pad, where after the cycle test is basically the test is done from 100 to 500 degrees up, and then basically from 60 to 10 kilometers braking. In approved brake pads from Knorr, the wear after this test cycle was basically between 1.9 to 3.09 millimeters. If you look at the other brake pads, way more friction material used. And for example, one brake pad M, they had to stop the test because all of the friction material was completely worn. Then, of course, we do a matching between our discs, our pads, and our caliper. We also went into the market as Knorr has a Spline Disc available in our range, and it's a patented design. There are some suppliers, alternative suppliers, that did some changes to this Spline Disc to bypass the patent by not infringing it. But the problems are, for example, the Knorr-Bremse as an intermediate elements to control the temperature. Basically, it's got brackets that's bolted onto the axle end. The alternative do not have. The cooling channels of a Knorr disc brake goes into the center to cool the up. The alternative do not. The Knorr disc is a symmetric design. The alternative is not. The Knorr brake disc is basically also less in weight. So alternative replacements, we found that when the brake tests were done, the alternative temperatures basically went into the area where you want to avoid. And this is an impact on your bearing, and of course you can have grease leakage, premature grease aging, increased bearing wear, and premature failure. Therefore, the Knorr-Bremse as the disc brake, air disc brake, and pads are a systematic performance to make sure that you have a long-term lifespan of our products. in the aftermarket also. Thank you, Patrick.
Right, that is stunning, man. You know, it's very interesting. Some of our delegates might be saying that, hey, these guys are selling their product against others, but they're not. What he's doing, it's so important to realize how much goes into the development of quality product that is then, I think who wanted to said is then just stolen, theft. There's so much that goes into the development of an OE product. But I would like all the presenters to just switch on their videos, please. Okay, here comes in Vic.
Yep.
So, yeah, and where is Max is there as well. Right, I don't know who this Max will be coming in.
We think.
Okay, Max, you can hear us, eh?
Yes, I can hear, but I can't. I can see you, but you cannot see me.
That sounds suspect, eh? Okay, guys. I think there's a very good question here from Henny van der Mober. Why should we doubt the quality of an aftermarket product when we have bodies approving and certifying the quality? Example, the R90 on brakes or ISO 9001 on other product groups. On brakes, R90 E1, for example, is Germany-made product. All aftermarket products should carry something similar, given the OEs and consumers peace of mind. Who'd like to tackle that? Yanni, I'm going for you first.
Okay, let's just say my point, which we were trying to make. I'm not saying, there's a place for our aftermarket products. But if you looked at my presentation carefully, yes, you can get those products. But look at what the alternative is, the long-term beneficial effect on your systems. And the advanced further testing and make sure it's lasting longer. And there's one slide I did not show where the tests were also done with the brake pads. Yes, we have a local standard. It's tested according to, but it's of a certain standard, which is not what our products at the highest standard tested to. And when we do brake testing, the knolbremse pad consistently from 100 degrees to 500 or 300 degrees stay at the certain stopping distance where other brake pads reduce it of stopping distance, and as I said, they vibration or they can, less of the vibration test they can last longer with. So it's you can choose what you would want to buy. That's about what I want to say.
Okay, Jay, you've got. I'm sure you got some comment on that, and Vic, I'd also like you to comment on it because it's a very good point, right?
Yeah, who first?
Your sound off. Yeah, you're on, yeah.
Patrick, I think when it comes to parts, whilst it might be certified to have a level of braking, I really think what customers need to start saying is, does it work for me? And we start doing comparison tests on these products, because it's all very well to people to certify, yes, it fits, yes, it is friction material, yes, it kind of works, but does it work for you? Are you getting the best product? Because absolutely, in my opinion, nothing. In fact, I've got to the point where it's all rubbish until tested. If you can't see the actual specs for yourself, you can't verify the life of the product yourself. And I encourage the fleets to test it. If it's brake pads, if it's brake shoes, if it's a component, a valve, a gear, test it for yourself. How often do you want to replace those parts? If you're finding the aftermarket is giving you a great product, well, then maybe we need to jack up our game. But I think the customer may find the opposite.
Okay, Joe, any comment on that question as well? Yanni, come in, certainly.
Can I just add, I wasn't aiming that this is OE product. This is what we use in the aftermarket. So yeah. I haven't been speaking about the OE that's fitted. Yes, it's OE. So our brake pad is basically also sold in the aftermarket up to that standard and tests.
Okay, but under your control, once again, anyone who's manufacturing, which was a point made by someone else, anyone manufacturing has to be to your standards, your quality spec, your control, and your jurisdiction. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. There is a
May I make
question
a comment,
that goes
please?
on and on.
Sorry, may I make a comment, Patrick?
Max, please do.
Okay. Sorry, I just cannot get the video to work now, but at least the
No
sound is
problem.
there. So actually, to what and really to build on what, in fact, what everyone has presented up to now, and to what Vic has said, Yanni has said, Yaya has said. So some of the and we earlier on we were talking about alternative product, and you were maybe defending we don't use the term pirate. There is some very good alternative product out there. So we're not disputing that, and we're not fighting that. However, I think it needs to it goes beyond that. It goes also to the design and to the fit and to the patents that are there. So, for example, and I just want to make a very, very simple example, and we're always talking about downtime. So if you are fitting original BPW brake drums and linings, okay, I'm going to use that example there. The BPW brake lining, to all intents and purposes, has a patented wear indicator built into the lining. The drum has a patented wear indicator. So you don't have to remove the brake drum to effectively check and inspect for lining wear. Okay, so that is also part and parcel of, saving on the downtime. And I'm pretty sure that Knorr and et cetera, they've all got these little tricks. I don't want to use the term tricks of the trade, but that only really comes through research and development that really then that gives the customer, the transporter, the ultimate benefit. It's not just about the onboard cost. And yeah, it's cheap now, and it's going to do, and maybe it lasts almost as long as the original. It's the total cost. It's the total cost of ownership that one has to really take into consideration. It's as simple as that. So
total cost of ownership is what it's about. Yeah. Jaya, thank you, Max. Jaya, you got that sound?
You need to maybe draw, Jaya. Audio.
Okay.
His microphone's not working.
Don't worry, the guy. Remember the guy who did for Obama? Jaya, okay, please. I do want to tell everybody that these questions will be answered also. Jaya, you will get a chance. There is an important one directed at ZF, actually, giving the OEM sole rights. How long would ZF give the OEM sole rights to a new component before releasing it into the aftermarket? That is directed at you, but unfortunately we haven't got braille on this one, and you haven't got sound, so we're not going to do it. Okay, guys, I think our time, I've just been given an indication that our allotted time, these guys give you so much time. I think it's been a fascinating discussion and a very informative discussion. I just, my end comment is I hope everyone's got an idea of what goes into original products, what goes into quality product. It's not just about price. We have seen, I've been a trucking journalist for 46 years. I've been on too many accident scenes, and they continue to happen daily. And many of the stuff, when you look at it, by the way, we also do the brake and tire watch. We've tested over 760 trucks, and we still to this day, although no events held this year because of COVID, we failed 70% of those trucks. Okay, so the operator also needs to catch a big wake up and actually talk to your suppliers. Talk to the guys like we are talking today. They are there to help you. Don't take a chance, and don't just go on price. I promise you, don't go on price. You're going to burn. It's going to cost you more in the long term. As all the presenters today have said, there are some good aftermarket, but find out which ones are which. Where is the quality? How do you accept the quality? If there is an outside party that is branding the thing like R90 or what the ISO marks, I'm afraid to say we can't rely a hell of a lot on our local SANS, on our local old SABS. Used to be absolutely fantastic. I think it's like a lot of departments in South Africa. It's filled with potholes, and it's series running down the streets. Okay, so I would like to see the SABS actually jack itself up on this, so that's our reliable sort of source of quality, but it doesn't actually exist anymore. And I say that sternly, and I'm prepared to be challenged on that. So beware cost. You won't tell the difference. By the outside, it looks the same. You can't tell the difference. But there are ways to tell the difference. Get out of these suppliers. They're not against aftermarket. They're not against others. But they are against rubbish parts that lead to extra costs for you over your lifetime cost period. And most importantly, lead to safety risk. And we are killing 15,000 people on the road. When it comes to brakes, don't compromise. There is no compromise, especially if your family is the one that ends up lying on the road. That is when you'll realize it. But please realize it before that. To everybody who attended today and to our wonderful presenters, wow, guys, you put a lot of work into it. This will be duplicated on YouTube. Everybody will be getting a copy of this. The questions there, Duncan, you've got a long one there, and I think it needs a bit of focused attention. I don't know if our presenters have read it. I certainly have. It needs some focused attention, and please, if our presenters could give all those questions a look and let us have them, and we will follow up on that. And everybody will get whatever has been presented this morning. So you can all look at it again and again, show it to your customers, show it to your people. If an operator wants to get a cheap part, show him this webinar. It's worthwhile investing an hour into a webinar that could save lives and could save you millions in costs. God bless you all. Stay safe and hope no more trucks get burned today.
Oh, please.
Thank you.